In this video, I'm going to cover the most boring part about YouTube script writing. And if you thought that YouTube script writing couldn't get more boring, it is about to be. Because this specific skill that I'm going to cover in this very video is what has allowed me to generate 40 million plus views with my YouTube channel and my clients and generate $10 million plus in revenue. And frankly, it's the reason that clients pay me so much money to generate them even more money with my specific YouTube scripts. And really, it's the most boring part. It cannot be replaced with AI, and that's why I gotta do it and I get paid the big bucks to help them execute on this. That's why in this video, I'm going to cover my 3-tier script writing editing system so that you can edit your killer scripts to make them even more killer and actually generate you thousands and thousands and thousands of views and even more money with your videos. I want to show you my exact thought process behind every edit, as well as the 3 steps that I take every script through to get to a great final product. In terms of my 3-tier editing system, I start with tier 1, which is foundation first, where I look at the structure, logic, and the flow of the script. On the 2nd tier of my editing, I look at retention, where I mainly focus on the hooks, the pattern interrupts, and the open loops. And lastly, on the 3rd tier, I look at the clarity, specificity, and the voice when I'm editing my script. So I want to break down exactly what each of these mean, and I'm going to show you practical examples of how I execute on it. So I'm going to pull up this sample script. The title of the script is how to actually achieve your goals according to science. So I'm going to leave this script on the screen for 3 to 4 seconds so you can give this a quick read. Right? Most people set goals and fail to achieve them. It's a common problem. In fact, study shows that 86% of New Year's resolutions are banned by February. Why does this happen? There are actually scientific reasons behind why goals fail, right? First, let me tell you about a really interesting study by Dr. Gail Matthews, and then I go into the study. Another important factor is something called implementation intentions. This was researched by psychologist Peter Gollwitzer. Basically, it means making specific plans for when and how you'll work on your goals. Research shows this technique is very effective, right? So this script actually isn't terrible at all, but let's see how much we can improve this by applying tier 1. This is what most of your scripts actually look like. So when I'm going through tier 1, I look at 3 things. I look at, does the order of the information make sense? And then I look whether there is redundancy within the script, meaning what is there that I can actually cut out. And number 3, does each point flow logically into the next? So in other words, I'm not immediately looking at retention, which is what most people look at. I'm looking whether point 1 flows to point 2, flows to point 3, and flows to point 4, and whether the entire skeleton of the script makes sense. So I want to look at the very first hook of this specific title. So the hook says, most people set goals and then fail to achieve them. It's a really common problem. In fact, study shows that 86% of New Year's resolutions are abandoned by February. Notice how it starts with the problem statement, and then it says it's common, and then it gives an example. That's pretty much the breakdown of this hook. But when you look at the title of the video, which is how to achieve your goals, the viewer already knows that hitting goals are hard. So you're actually wasting 3 sentences telling them that, hey, hitting your goals are hard. Because if the viewer were to click on this specific title, they already know of their pain point that hitting goals are hard. That's exactly why they're clicking on it. So structurally, when you look at the foundations of the hook, it's not actually very efficient in terms of capturing the audience's attention. Ideally, in this specific scenario with this specific title, the structure of the hook should go bold claim and then explaining why it matters and then telling the viewer what they'll specifically learn. Also, notice the redundancy, right? At the start, I say most people set goals and fail, and then I go into 86% of people fail their New Year's resolution by February. So this is the exact same point said twice, when in reality, I can just cut out the first part and then I can say 86% of people fail their New Year's resolution by February. Both of them illustrate the same point, but I'm going to pick the statistic because that is a lot more tangible and it's a lot easier for the viewer to actually feel that and relate to that specific statistic. So instead, if you were to condense all of this down to the bold claim, you can start with studies show that 86% of New Year's resolutions fail by February. And today I'm going to show you why that is and how you could be in the 14% who actually succeed. So just like that, you've completely fixed the hook by looking at the logical flow and what the title actually demands from the hook. And bam, this is the script after the first round of the edit. Which brings me to the second round of the edit, which focuses on fixing the payoff order. Just looking at the body, we have a section about writing goals down by Dr. Gail Matthews, followed by a section about implementation intentions by Peter Gollwitzer. But if you were to take a closer look at the script from a viewer's standpoint, you'll notice that the logic doesn't actually flow. The payoffs seem to be in a random order. So when it comes to payoff, we want to restructure things in an order of consequence that the viewer can immediately follow and immediately implement in their lives, because that's how you create logical flow. So in the original script, we jumped from talking about goal failure by Dr. Matthews, and then we talked about implementation intention. So there's kind of a gap missing over there. So in terms of restructuring it, I would actually give the viewer a two-step system up front. So if you add a line that says science shows 2 steps that triple your success rate. Step 1, write it down, and step 2, to make it specific. And then once you set that expectation, and then you tell the viewer, okay, step 1 is associated with Matthew's study, and then step 2 is associated with Gollwitzer's study. And that way you've made it easy for the viewer to consume the specific information that you're about to tell them, rather than throwing them random studies at their face. So this is the new script after edit number 2, right? We have the hook, and then we have the line that sets the expectation that frames exactly what you're going to tell them, and then we have study 1 and study 2, which follows the exact 2 steps over there. So right now, even with just this edit, it's a lot easier to read. And now this brings me to the third step of the edit, which is cutting out any of the nothing burgers. So a nothing burger is what I call within my team any information that is unimportant. Imagine if you go into a team meeting and everyone just yaps about things that are not important, to you, that doesn't necessarily align with your KPIs, and those are called nothing burgers because it's actually not important information. Now, imagine if you're watching a YouTube video and they tell you information that is not related to you or not helpful to you at all. Then you would immediately click off because you're like, this is a complete waste of my time. I could go watch Mr. Beast, I could go watch Ali Abdaal, I could go watch Brian, I can go watch any other YouTuber, right? But if you're staying till this point, you would find that editing your script is actually an incredibly important part of your workflow. So that's why you're still here. So in this specific case, when I look at the script, I see this line, why does it happen? There are actually scientific reasons behind why goals fail. And today I'm going to explain what the research says and how you can use science to finally reach your goals. This specific section is a transition section. And when you read this transition section, it's actually repeating what the hook is saying. So you can completely cut it out. Once again, this is considered a redundancy. Or sentences like, first, let me tell you about a really interesting study, right? You can just completely cut that out and just tell the viewer directly the study, right? You save 5 seconds of the viewer's time and you get directly to the point. Or the line, it becomes more real to you, and that's important for achieving your goals, right? You can just say, it becomes more real to you. Is enough, right? So the second line, once again, I would consider to be a redundancy. We can just cut it out, right? And when you do this again and again and again, right, and you read your script and you ask yourself, what is important information that the viewer needs to know, right? There's this test that I like to call the angry grandpa test, right? Meaning that if you have an angry grandpa sitting over your shoulder, right, and reading your script of you and him yelling into your ear, is this information important? Can you cut this? Okay. And if you are a lot more ruthless with how you cut and removing these nothing burgers and these redundancies, your script will be 1,000 times better off because you are a lot more ruthless with the information that you're giving. And that way, when you cut out all of the fluff, you can highly increase your value per minute. And that's how you achieve scripts that gets hundreds of thousands of views, millions of views, because they have a strong topic and really strong information or really strong entertainment for the viewer, which keeps them watching for long hours and makes them want to return back to your video over and over and over again. So once you cut out all of the fluff, something really interesting happens. And that's that you can start seeing the real structure of your entire script. And you'll notice that every sentence has a core purpose in terms of bringing the viewer down a journey of your thought process and really learning about you and what you have to say. So here's the new structure after applying tier 1 edits. Let's read it. Studies show that 86% of New Year's resolutions fail by February, and science shows 2 steps that triple your success rate. Step 1, write it down. Step 2, make it specific. Dr. Gail Matthews studied 267 people. She found that people who write down their goals are 42% more likely to achieve them, because when you write something down, your brain processes it differently it becomes more real. Psychologist Peter Gollwitzer researched something called implementation intentions, and this means making specific plans for when and how you'll work your goals. So instead of exercise more, you can say, I'll go to the gym Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 7 a.m. So if you were to put the script 1 and script number 3 with the edit side by side, they give the exact same information, but you can see script 3 is a lot more concise and more direct, more straight to the point, and gives the value in a more punchy way, which is all of YouTube. Everyone has great information. It's just a matter of how you package your information and how you say it. Okay, cool.